Recently, an intriguing report has been making waves. It seems that the Las Vegas Raiders held a team meeting where a lot was said. You might remember that last year, during a similar meeting, players openly criticized Josh McDaniels, which led to Antonio Pierce stepping up and uniting the team. Just a day later, McDaniels was fired. Now it appears we had another meeting like that, and things didn't change much this time either. Before diving deeper, let's take a look at the report from CBS Sports, which I found really interesting. The Raiders made some significant changes this past week. After their loss to the Bengals, they fired offensive coordinator Luke Getsy and 2 other offensive staff members. In the days ahead, head coach Antonio Pierce is set to promote Scott Turner to offensive coordinator, make senior advisor Joe Philbin the offensive line coach, and bring in veteran NFL coach Norv Turner as an offensive advisor. Norv, by the way, is Scott's father. But that's not all. On Monday afternoon, players and staff had a meeting where players voiced their concerns. They talked about needing a better schedule, saying that too much time was being wasted. They called for more structure, discipline, and accountability across the entire team. The Raiders are on a bye week now, but the hope is that these changes will help the struggling 2-win Raiders finish the season strong, just like last year. One key takeaway from this report is that players, including Max Crosby, were willing to speak up. They pointed out that the team isn't being run properly and highlighted issues with scheduling and efficiency. They stressed the need for more structure and accountability, not just for players, but also for the coaching staff. What's fascinating is that the Raiders have gone through various coaching styles in recent years. Jack Del Rio was strict, while John Gruden brought a more relaxed atmosphere. After Gruden's departure, Josh McDaniels took a very strict approach, which players didn't like at all. When McDaniels was fired and Antonio Pierce took over, the mood lightened. Players were having fun, smoking cigars, and even playing basketball in the locker room. But now, it seems that the team might have swung too far in the other direction, losing that essential accountability. Antonio Pierce is a first-year coach, and it's understandable that he's still figuring things out. He moved up quickly from being a college coach to an NFL linebacker coach and now a head coach, which is rare. So, I don't blame him for facing some challenges. However, what troubles me is the number of experienced coaches on this roster. If players aren't being held accountable and time is being wasted, then what are Marvin Lewis, Rob Ryan, and Joe Philbin doing? If they can't help Antonio Pierce run a smoother team, then that raises some serious concerns. Antonio Pierce has someone on his team specifically to help with game management. This person has a clear role to assist Pierce with different game situations. We know what Rob Leonard brings to the table as he focuses on developing and motivating the defensive linemen. But what about Marvin Lewis and Rob Ryan? What are they really doing? It's concerning that these experienced coaches who are supposed to support Antonio Pierce might not be fulfilling their roles effectively. You would expect someone like Rob Ryan to help with scheduling and ensure that everything runs smoothly. For example, he could say, "Rob Leonard, you have 12 minutes to work on this. Then we'll move on to the next task." With their experience, these coaches should be guiding the team better. I'm not blaming them entirely, but it's troubling that players felt the need to have a meeting to voice their frustrations. They're looking at the coaching staff and placing blame where it might be deserved. That's simply unacceptable. The Raiders did make some coaching changes, and I've heard for weeks that there were issues with the offensive coaching staff. For instance, James Craig, the offensive line coach, hasn't been effective. You can see that in how some players perform. I'm not saying DJ Clowney or Jackson Powers Johnson are bad players, but putting Jackson Powers Johnson at left guard instead of better options like Jordan Mailata just doesn't make sense. As an offensive line coach, you have to recognize who fits where. Jackson Powers Johnson has always been a great center, even if the Raiders listed him as a guard when they drafted him. He's proven himself to be elite, especially in recent games. Decisions like these show that James Craig might lack the necessary experience, as he was never a full offensive line coach in the NFL. On the other hand, Rob Leonard is a fantastic defensive line coach who knows what he's doing, but then you have coaches like James Craig and Luke Getsy, who, to put it simply, haven't performed well. Most players would agree that Getsy is not a good offensive coordinator. Even if Davante Adams defended him, it feels like he did that out of obligation rather than genuine support. After spending time with Getsy, it's clear that he struggles with designing an effective offense. There have always been issues with the Raiders, and I hope this meeting leads to positive changes. However, I'm not sure what it will mean for the team moving forward. The season is pretty much over. Sure, they could win every game from here on out and maybe make the playoffs, but that's unrealistic. Even winning 85% of the remaining games doesn't guarantee success. The most important thing for the Raiders this season is to figure out if Antonio Pierce is the right coach for the future. It's not normal to have players and staff meetings to discuss blame and issues. It should be a given that a coach runs things efficiently. Wasting time on basic problems is unacceptable. If Antonio Pierce can't prove himself by the end of the season, I hope the Raiders consider making a change. Mark Davis needs to recognize the difference between successful teams and those that struggle. It's not about keeping the same coach for years. It's about hiring a great head coach who can lead the team to success. If John Gruden can achieve success, then keeping him around for a while makes sense. On the other hand, Josh McDaniels and Luke Getsy have shown that they aren't effective coaches. If you keep a coach for 7 years, you can see real growth and success. I'm confident that Ben Johnson will become a great coach in the NFL. Jim Harbaugh will also excel, no matter where he ends up. For example, if he goes to the Los Angeles Chargers, a team that has let go of several key players like Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, they are still performing well and are playoff contenders. This shows how much a good coach can impact a team. For the Raiders to improve, they need to find that right coach. In my opinion, having a great coach is even more important than having a star quarterback. You can always find quarterbacks like Baker Mayfield or Sam Darnold available, but a strong coach is essential to bring everything together. Take the 49ers, for instance. During Harbaugh's first coaching stint, they had great success. However, when he left, they struggled. After firing him, they hired Chip Kelly for just 1 year, realizing quickly that Kyle Shanahan was the better choice. Great organizations know how to find and hire great coaches. Look at the Rams. They were once the laughingstock of the league, just like the Raiders are now. But they turned things around as soon as they found the right coach. If the Raiders want to succeed, they must hire a good coach. There are some promising candidates out there like Ben Johnson and Bobby Slowick. The Raiders need to make the right decision because great coaches don't come around every year. If Antonio Pierce isn't the answer, they need to move on and find someone who is. The good news is that the Raiders have a game coming up on Sunday. Bye weeks can be tough, and I didn't make any picks for underdog this week, but I want to share some picks for Monday night's game. I'm planning a $10 entry with a chance to win $210. One of my picks is Puka Nacua, who only needs to rush for 1.4 yards. If you don't know, Nacua is a receiver who often goes in motion and usually gets a couple of carries each game. If he gets just one rushing attempt, I'm confident he'll hit that mark. I also like Devin Achane, who needs to score at least 16.8 fantasy points. That seems doable for him. Tyreek Hill is another option, but I'm a bit hesitant about his 5.5 receptions. He needs to catch at least 6 passes, which might be a stretch, but it's Monday Night Football, and the Dolphins need a win. Matthew Stafford has thrown an interception in each of his last 3 games, and with the Dolphins' opportunistic defense, there's a good chance he'll throw another one this week. Lastly, Raheem Mostert needs at least 29 rushing yards. He's getting healthy, and I think he can easily achieve that with just a couple of carries. Those are my picks. If you want to make your own, use the code in the comments below and tag me on Twitter. I'd love to hear your thoughts on these picks. I hope you enjoyed this video. The Raiders need to figure things out, and I believe they can. They should be able to find a quarterback in the upcoming draft and make the right decision on their head coach. If they can land someone like Ben Johnson or Bobby Slowick, they should go for it. If not, they might need to stick with Antonio Pierce for now. Don't forget to give a thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you next time with another video.